Captain Jiwan stared out the window of his ship as Earth grew larger. The blue planet looked peaceful from space, but Jiwan felt no peace in his heart. His mission had failed. 3 human colonies were gone, destroyed, everyone dead. The Hanbok was coming home, but it felt more like running away. "Captain," said Minho from the pilot seat. "New Seoul Spaceport is asking for our landing bay number." "Tell them Bay 7, Jiwan said. His voice was tired. "And tell them we need a full medical. Check for the crew." Sora looked up from her computer screen. "Sir, the families of the colonists. They'll want to know what happened." Jiwan closed his eyes. How could he tell them? How could he explain that their loved ones were simply gone? That the enemy ships came from nowhere and destroyed everything? In minutes. "We'll deal with that later," he said. The Hanbok landed with a soft bump. Through the metal walls, Jiwan could hear the sounds of the busy spaceport. People talking, machines working, life going on. It seemed wrong somehow. How could life continue when so many had died? "Crew dismissed," Jiwan announced. "Get some rest. We'll have meetings tomorrow." His crew members left the bridge one by one. Hannah patted his shoulder before she left. Dong-yuk gave him a sad smile. They all knew the mission had failed. They all felt the weight of it. Ji-won sat alone for a long time. Finally, he stood up and walked to the exit. The spaceport air smelled like metal and fuel. Workers moved around, loading and unloading ships. Everything looked normal, too normal. "Excuse me, Captain." Ji-won turned around. A young woman stood behind him. She wore the blue uniform of a maintenance worker. Her name tag said Nari. She looked about 25 years old, with short black hair and dark eyes. "Yes," Ji-won said. "I'm sorry about the colonies," Nari said. Her voice was soft but clear. It must have been hard to see. Ji-won stared at her. "How do you know about that?" "The mission report isn't public yet." Nari smiled, but it was a strange smile. Word travels fast in a spaceport. People talk. "The mission was classified," Ji-won said. He felt suspicious now. "Who are you exactly?" "Just a maintenance worker," Nari said. "But I'm curious about something. When you saw the colonies burning, what did you feel?" The question surprised Ji-won. What did I feel? I felt angry, sad, helpless. "Did you want revenge?" "Of course I did." "But revenge won't bring back the dead." Nari nodded slowly. "Interesting. Most people would have said yes right away. You thought about it first." "Most people haven't seen what I've seen," Ji-won said. "War doesn't solve anything. It just makes more problems. Even when someone destroys everything you're trying to protect." Ji-won looked at her carefully. This wasn't normal small talk. "Why are you asking me these questions?" "I'm curious about humans," Nari said. "Your species does strange things. You risk your lives for people you've never met. You feel sad when strangers die. Why? 'Cause it's the right thing to do," Ji-won said. "We're all connected somehow. When one person suffers, we all suffer a little." Nara's eyes grew wider. "You really believe that, don't you?" "My people, ... They think differently," Nari said. Then she looked surprised, like she had said something wrong. "Your people. Aren't you Korean?" Nari was quiet for a moment. "I should go. My shift is starting." She started to walk away, but Ji-won followed her. Something about this conversation felt important. "Wait, what did you mean about your people?" "Nothing," Nari said, walking faster. "I misspoke." They were walking deeper into the spaceport now, away from the main areas. The hallways here were older, less busy. The lights were dimmer. "This isn't the way to the maintenance area," Ji-won said. "I know a shortcut," Nari said. But Ji-won had been in this spaceport many times. He knew every hallway, every room. This path led to the old storage sections that nobody used anymore. "Stop," he said. "Who are you really?" Nari stopped walking. She turned around slowly. "You're very observant, Captain. Answer my question. I told you, I'm curious about humans. Your species is ... unusual. Unusual how? Most species, when they face danger, they become selfish. They think only about saving themselves. But humans do the opposite. The more danger you face, the more you help each other." Why Juan felt confused. Why does a maintenance worker care about this? "Because," Nari said, "I've been watching your species for a long time, and I think it's time for the next step." "The next step in what?" Instead of answering, Nari opened. A door behind it was a room that shouldn't exist. The walls were made of some kind of black stone that seemed to glow from inside. Strange symbols covered the surfaces. The air felt different here, thick and old. "This room isn't on any spaceport map," Juan said. "No," Nari agreed. "It's much older than the spaceport. Much older than your species." Jiwan stepped inside. He couldn't help himself. The room felt important somehow, like standing in a place where history was made. "How long have you been watching us?" he asked. "Long enough to see your wars, your growth, your mistakes. Long enough to see you reach the stars and try to help other worlds. And now something is coming. Something that will test your species." The colonies that were destroyed, that was just the beginning. Jiwan felt cold. Beginning of what? Nari looked at him with eyes that suddenly seemed much older than 25 years. "A test, Captain. A test that every species must face. Most fail. What happens to the ones that fail?" "They disappear," Nari said simply. "Like they never existed. And if we pass," Nari smiled. But this time it wasn't strange. It was sad. "Then you get to help decide who gets tested next." Jiwan stared at her. Nothing made sense anymore. A maintenance worker who knew classified information. A room that couldn't exist. Talk of tests and species disappearing. "You're not human, are you?" he said quietly. "No," Nari said. "But I hope, for your sake and mine, that you're everything I think you are." The room began to glow brighter. Jiwan felt dizzy. "The test begins now," Nari said. "And Captain, everything depends on how your species handles what comes next." The last thing Jiwan saw before darkness took him was Neris's face, and for just a moment she looked like something vast and ancient and not human at all. Guan woke up on a metal floor. His head hurt. The air tasted different, clean, but strange, like breathing inside a cloud. He sat up slowly and looked around. He was not on his ship anymore. The room was huge, bigger than any room he had ever seen. The walls curved up and up until they disappeared in darkness. Strange blue lights moved across the ceiling like slow lightning. Everything was made of smooth, dark metal that seemed to be alive. Captain Jiwan turned. Minho was running toward him. Behind Minho came Sora, then Hannah and Dong-yuk. His whole crew was here. "Where are we?" Sora asked. She looked scared. "I don't know," Juan said. He stood up and helped Hannah to her feet. "Is everyone okay?" They all nodded, but their faces showed confusion and fear. "The last thing I remember was being on the spaceport," Dong-yuk said. "Then I felt dizzy and ... "And you woke up here," said a voice. They all turned. Nari walked out of the shadows. But she looked different now. Instead of the blue maintenance uniform, she wore long robes that seemed to be made of starlight. Moved and changed color as she walked. "You," Jiwan said. "What did you do to us?" "I brought you where you need to be," Nari said. This ship exists between spaces, between times. Here, we can conduct the test without disturbing your world." "What? Test?" Minho demanded. "What are you talking about?" Nari waved her hand. The air in front of them shimmered, and suddenly they could see space outside. But it wasn't normal space. Stars moved in patterns, forming shapes and pictures. Planets danced around each other like children playing. "Your species has reached a point where it must be judged," Nari said. "Every intelligent species reaches this point. They become powerful enough to spread across the galaxy. When that happens, they must prove they deserve to survive." "Survive what?" Jiwan asked. The cleansing Nari said simply. "Species that fail the test are removed. Completely. It's kinder than letting them spread their flaws across the stars." Sora stepped forward. "That's murder." "You're talking about genocide. I'm talking about responsibility," Neri said. "The galaxy is a fragile place. One violent species can destroy thousands of peaceful worlds. One selfish species can use up all the resources and leave nothing for others. And you decide who lives and dies?" Hannah asked. "Not me alone. But yes, someone must decide." The crew looked at each other. Jiwan could see the anger and fear in their faces. He felt it too, but he also felt something else, curiosity. "How many species have passed your test?" he asked. Nari was quiet for a moment. "Very few." "How many?" "In the last 1,000,000 years, 3. The crew was silent. 3 species in 1,000,000 years. "What happened to the others?" Jiwan asked, though he was afraid of the answer. "They became something else," Nari said. "They became the force that destroys the colonies and worlds of species being tested. The very ships that destroyed your 3 colonies were once beings like you." Jiwan felt sick. "You turn the failed species into killers. They turn themselves into killers. That's usually why they fail the test." "This is insane," Minho said. "You can't just—" "The first test begins now," Nari interrupted. The space around them changed. Suddenly, they were looking at 2 scenes. On the left, they could see Earth, blue and beautiful. On the right, they could see the remains of the 3 colonies that had been destroyed. But in both scenes, dark ships were approaching. "The destroyers are moving toward both locations," Nari said. "You have 1 ship. Your ship. You can save 1 location, but not both. Choose." "That's not a choice," Sora said. "That's impossible." "Every species says that," Nari said. "But you must choose. Save Earth, where billions of your people live. Or save the colonists, who are fewer but need help more. What is the right choice?" The crew stared at the 2 scenes. The dark ships were getting closer to both Earth and the colonies. "How long do we have?" Zwan asked. "Minutes." Nari said. Jiwan looked at his crew. Minho was staring at Earth. "We have to save the home world," he said. "Earth has billions of people. The colonies only have thousands." "But the colonies are helpless," Sora said. "Earth has defenses. The colonies have nothing." "Numbers matter," Minho said. "We save the most lives possible." "Since when do we choose who lives and dies based on numbers?" Hannah asked. G1 closed his eyes. This was impossible. Both choices were right. Both choices were wrong. Captain Dongyuk said quietly, "What if we don't choose?" "What do you mean?" Jiwan asked. "What if we refuse to accept that we can only save 1? Nari raised an eyebrow. "You only have 1 ship." "We have 1 ship," Jiwan said slowly. "But we have 5 crew members." He turned to his team. "Minho, Sora, you take the handbok to Earth. Use the emergency broadcast system. Tell every ship, every station, every defense platform to work together. Don't fight the dark ships directly. They're too strong. Instead, create a shield wall. Protect the planet. What about the colonies? Sora asked. Hana, Dongyuk, and I will take the escape pod to the colonies. Captain, that's suicide, Minho said. The escape pod has no weapons. It doesn't need weapons, Jiwan said. It just needs to get us there. And then what? Hana asked. Then we do what humans do best, Jiwan said. We improvise. Nari watched them with interest. This is not how the test usually goes. Good, Jiwan said. Minho, Sora, go. Now, his crew members ran toward the ship. Jiwan could see the hanbok through the strange walls of Nara's vessel. Somehow, it was right there, ready to launch. You're dividing your forces, Nari said. Both missions will probably fail. Probably, Jiwan agreed. But we won't abandon anyone. That's not who we are, even if it means everyone dies. Even then, Nari smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen from her. Interesting. The hanbok launched from the ship. At the same time, Jiwan, Hana, and Dongyuk ran to the escape pod. This is crazy, Hana said as they climbed inside. Crazy is what we do, Dongyuk said. They launched toward the colonies. Behind them, the hanbok raced toward Earth. Ahead of them, dark ships waited like hungry wolves. Captain, Hana said, what's the plan when we get there? Jiwan stared at the approaching colony ruins. We find survivors. We help them fight. And we prove that humans don't give up. What if there are no survivors? Then we make sure their story gets told. The escape pod flew through space toward almost certain death, but Jiwan felt something he hadn't felt since the colonies were destroyed hope behind them on the strange ship. Nari watched both missions unfold. Her ancient eyes were bright with curiosity. Now this, she said to herself, is something new. The escape pod shook as it flew through space. Jiwan watched the dark ships getting closer to the colony ruins. T's hands were sweaty on the controls. Captain Hana said from behind him, I'm getting radio signals from the colony. There are survivors? How many? Jiwan asked. Hard to tell. Maybe 50 people? They're hiding in the underground shelters. Dongyuk looked at his scanner. The dark ships will reach them in 3 minutes. We'll get there in 2. What's the plan? Hana asked. G1 thought fast. The escape pod had no weapons, no shields. But it had something else. We're going to ram the lead ship, he said. Captain, that will kill us, Dongyuk said. Maybe, but it might give the survivors time to escape. There has to be another way, Hana said. Jiwan stared at the dark ships. They were huge, black, and covered in weapons. His tiny escape pod looked like a bug next to them. Then he had an idea. Hana, can you boost our communication system? Yes, but why? Because we're going to talk to them. Talk to the dark ships. Dongyuk asked, Captain, I don't think they want to chat. Everything alive wants something, Jiwan said. Peaches. Need to find out what. Akana worked on the communication system. Ready, Captain? Jiwan opened a channel to the dark ships. This is Captain Jiwan of Earth. Can you hear me? Silence. I know you can hear me, Jiwan said. I want to talk. More silence. Then, a voice like broken glass spoke. We do not talk. We destroy. Why? Jiwan asked. Because we must. Because we failed. Jiwan felt his heart beat faster. These weren't just machines. These were the failed species Nari had talked about. What did you fail? He asked. The test? We chose wrong. Now we serve the cleansing. You don't have to serve it, Jiwan said. You can choose differently now. No, we cannot. We are bound. The dark ships were almost at the colony. Jiwan could see people running on the surface, trying to reach the shelters. Then I'll choose for you, Jiwan said. He turned the escape pod toward the dark ships. But instead of ramming them, he flew right between them and the colony. "What are you doing?" Hannah asked. "Something stupid," Jiwan said, "but maybe stupid enough to work." He opened the communications channel again. "If you want to destroy the colony, you'll have to go through me." "Move aside, human," the dark ship said. "You cannot stop us." "I'm not trying to stop you," Jiwan said. "I'm trying to save you. We cannot be saved. Everyone can be saved, even you." The dark ships stopped moving. For a moment, space was quiet. "You would die for strangers?" the voice asked. "Yes," Jiwan said. "Wouldn't you?" We used to. Long ago. Then remember who you were before you failed the test." The dark ships hovered in space. Jiwan could almost feel them thinking. "We were explorers," the voice said slowly. "We helped others. We built things. We were good." "You can be good again," Jiwan said. "The binding is too strong." Then let us help break it. Suddenly, the space around them changed. They were back on Nari's ship. But this time, the whole crew was there. Minho and Sora had returned. "How did Earth do?" Guan asked quickly. "We saved it," Sora said, breathing hard. "Barely. But your idea worked." When all the ships worked together, they were strong enough to push back the dark ships. "And the colony?" Hannah asked. "The dark ships left without attacking," Dongyuk said. I think we confused them." Nari walked toward them. She looked surprised. "Congratulations," she said. "You passed the first test." "How?" Minho asked. "We were supposed to choose one or the other." "You chose both," Nari said. "More importantly, you showed compassion to your enemies. The dark ships haven't had a real conversation in thousands of years. You reminded them of who they used to be." "What's the second test?" Jiwan asked. Instead of answering, Nari waved her hand. The world around them changed completely. Suddenly, Jiwan was standing in a city, but not a normal city. The buildings kept changing. Sometimes they looked like ancient Korean palaces. Sometimes they looked like modern apartments. Sometimes they looked like alien structures he had never seen before. "Where are we?" he asked. But when he turned around, his crew was gone. He was alone. "Welcome to the second test," Nara's voice said from everywhere and nowhere. "This is the test of growth. You must experience what your species has learned from its mistakes." The world shifted. Now, Jiwan was in a war zone. Soldiers were fighting in the streets. People were running and screaming. He could smell smoke and hear explosions. But he wasn't just watching. He was living it. He was a young soldier, scared and alone, holding a rifle he didn't want to use. "This is the Korean War," Nari's voice said. "Your species learned about sacrifice here. But did you learn about mercy?" "Okay." An enemy soldier appeared around a corner. The young soldier Jiwan had become raised his rifle. But then he saw that the enemy soldier was hurt and unarmed. Without thinking, Jiwan put down his rifle and helped the wounded soldier. The scene changed. Now he was in a flooding city. The water was rising fast. People were trapped on rooftops. This was the great climate disaster of 2156. But this time, Jiwan was an engineer. He had to choose save the rich district with fewer people or save the poor district with more people but less money for rebuilding. Jiwan chose to save both. He worked 4 days without sleep, building new pumps and barriers. Many people thought he was crazy, but in the end, both districts survived. The scene changed again. Now he was on Mars during the first colony rebellion. He was a peacekeeper, trying to stop the fighting between Earth forces and Mars colonists. Everyone wanted him to choose a side. But instead, Ji-won sat down in the middle of the battlefield and refused to move until both sides agreed to talk. It took 3 days. But finally, they talked. The scenes kept changing. Each time, Ji-won had to make choices. Each time, he chose compassion over safety, cooperation over competition, hope over fear. Finally, the changing stopped. He was back on Nari's ship. His crew was there too, looking tired but determined. "How did you all do?" Ji-won asked. "It was hard," Hannah said. "I lived through the water wars. I had to choose between my family and strangers." "What did you choose?" Sora asked. "I chose to find a way to save everyone," Hannah said. Even when people said it was impossible, they all shared their stories. Each of them had faced moments where they had to choose between easy and right. Each of them had chosen right, even when it was harder. Nari appeared again. This time, she looked proud. "You have passed the second test," she said. "You have shown that your species can learn from its mistakes without losing its compassion." "What's the third test?" Ji-won asked. Neris's expression became serious. "The third test is the hardest. It's the test of transcendence. You must solve a problem that has no easy answer." The air around them began to glow with strange symbols and numbers. "This is the equation of consciousness," Nari said. "It represents the fundamental nature of all thinking beings. Solve it, and you will understand your place in the universe." Looked at the floating numbers and symbols. They were beautiful, but made no sense to him. "I don't understand mathematics like this," he said. "Then perhaps," Nari said, "mathematics is not the answer." The crew gathered around the equation. They stared at it for a long time. Finally, Dong-yuk spoke up. "What if it's not about the numbers?" "What do you mean?" Minho asked. "What if it's about what the equation represents? Consciousness, thinking, being alive." Ji-won understood. "It's not asking us to solve a math problem. It's asking us to understand what it means to be alive and thinking. And what does it mean?" Nari asked. Ji-won looked at his crew, at Nari, at the strange ship around them. "It means we're all connected," he said. "Every thinking being in the universe. We're all part of the same big picture. We're small individually, but together we're infinite." The equation began to glow brighter. "It means we have a responsibility to help others think and grow and be better," Sora added. "It means we're not meant to be alone," Hannah said. The equation dissolved into light. The light filled the ship. "Correct," Nari said softly. "You have passed all 3 tests." But Ji-won had a feeling that the real test was just beginning. The light from the solved equation faded slowly. Ji-won felt different somehow, like he could see more clearly than before. His crew looked the same way, alert and changed. "Follow me," Nari said. Her voice was softer now, almost sad. "It's time. You saw the truth." She led them through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls showed moving pictures of stars and planets. Some pictures showed beautiful worlds with cities and forests. Others showed dead planets, dark and empty. "Where are we going?" Sora asked. "To the heart of this ship," Nari said. "To the place where all stories end." They walked for what felt like hours. Finally, they reached a huge door made of the same glowing metal as the walls. Nari placed her hand on it, and it opened. Inside was a room so big that Ji-won couldn't see the far walls. The ceiling was like looking into deep space, filled with stars and swirling clouds of light. But these weren't real stars. They were memories. "This is the archive," Nari said. "Every species that has ever been tested is remembered here." As they walked deeper into the room, the memories began to play around them like movies. Ji-won saw strange alien creatures building cities, exploring space, creating art. They all looked different, but they all seemed alive and curious. "They're beautiful," Hannah whispered. They were Nari, agreed. Each one had something special. The Veltar were master artists who could paint with light. The Korthani could sing songs that healed sick planets. The Zephyrians could travel between stars using only their minds. "What happened to them?" Dong-yuk asked. Nari stopped walking. Around them, the memories changed. Now they showed the same species, but different. The Veltar were using their light painting to blind and hurt others. The Korthane were singing songs that destroyed instead of healed. The Zephyrians were invading other worlds with their mind travel. "They all faced the same tests you just passed," Neri said, "and they all failed." "How?" Jiwan asked. "Different ways, but the same ending. When they faced the choice between saving their own people or helping strangers, they chose selfishly. When they lived through their history, they learned nothing from their mistakes. When they tried to understand consciousness, they only thought about themselves. The memories kept playing." Jiwan watched species after species make the wrong choices. He saw wars, destruction, entire worlds turning dark. "But what happened to them after they failed?" Minho asked. Nera's face became very sad. "They became the dark ships." The crew stared at her. "You mean ... double quotes," Sora started to say. "Yes, the ships that destroyed your colonies. The ships that attack every species being tested. They are the failed ones, transformed and bound to serve the cleansing." Jiwan felt sick. "You turn them into killers." "I don't turn them into anything," Nari said. "They do it to themselves. When a species fails the test, their worst nature takes over completely. They become so full of fear and anger that they can't think of anything else. The transformation just makes their bodies match their minds." "That's horrible," Hannah said. "Yes," Nari agreed. "It is. That's why the tests exist, to stop species from spreading that darkness across the galaxy." They walked deeper into the archive. More memories played around them. Jiwan saw thousands of species, maybe millions, all of them different. All of them failed. "In all this time," he asked quietly, "how many have passed?" "Before you?" Nari said. "3. 3 out of millions. 3 out of millions." Oh, the weight of that number pressed down on them. Jiwan looked at his crew. They had passed, but barely. "What made them different? Who are you really?" he asked Nari. She was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "I am one of the Watchers. My people evolved long ago, before your son was born. We learned to move beyond physical bodies, beyond the need for planets or food or sleep. We became pure consciousness, able to travel anywhere in the universe instantly." "How long ago?" Sora asked. 12 million years, Nari said simply. The number was so big it was hard to understand. 12 million years. Humans had only existed for a few 100,000 years. "Why do you test other species?" Jiwan asked. "'Cause we learned something terrible," Nari said. "We learned that most intelligent life follows the same pattern. First, they grow curious and explore. Then they grow powerful and spread to other worlds. Then they grow afraid and start fighting. Finally, they grow so angry and scared that they destroy everything, including themselves. But some species don't follow that pattern," Dong-yuk said. "Very few. And when we find them, we hope they can help us break the cycle." "What cycle?" Nari waved her hand. The memories around them changed to show a bigger picture. Jiwan could see the whole galaxy spinning slowly. But it wasn't just stars and planets. It was patterns of light and darkness, creation and destruction, over and over again. "Every few million years, the galaxy goes through a cleansing," Nari said. "All the violent species destroy themselves or get destroyed. Then new species evolve, and the cycle starts again. We've watched it happen 5 times now. You could stop it, Minho said. How? By destroying species before they become violent. That makes us the violent ones. By controlling them, that takes away their choice to grow and learn. So you test them instead, Jiwan said. We test them, and we hope that someday enough good species will pass that they can work together to break the cycle permanently. Jiwan understood now. The 3 species that passed before us, where are they? They became watchers too. They help us test new species and guide the ones that show promise. And now you want us to become watchers. Nari looked at him with ancient eyes. That's not my choice to make. It's yours. They walked to the center of the archive. There, floating in the air, was a sphere of pure light. Inside the sphere, Jiwan could see everything, all the stars, all the planets, all the life in the galaxy. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. This is the heart of knowledge, Nari said. Everything we watchers have learned in 12 million years is here. If you touch it, you'll understand the universe the way we do. You'll be able to see across space and time. You'll know the thoughts of every living being. But, Jiwan said, because he could hear a but in her voice. But you'll also become like us. You'll leave your physical bodies behind. You'll never be able to go home to Earth as you are now. The crew looked at each other. This was bigger than they had imagined. Weren't just being offered membership in some galactic club. They were being offered godhood. What if we say no? Hannah asked. Then you go home, Nari said. You return to Earth with knowledge that will help your species grow. But you'll always know that the cycle continues. And someday, maybe in 1,000,000 years, maybe in 10 million years, it will reach Earth again. And if we say yes, then you help us watch and guide and test. You become part of the solution instead of just being protected from the problem. Jiwan stared at the sphere of light. He could feel it calling to him, promising answers to every question he had ever had. But he also thought about Earth, about his friends and family, about all the humans who would never know what he had learned here. Can we have some time to decide? He asked. Of course, Nari said. But while you think, let me show you one more thing. She touched the sphere, and suddenly the archive filled with new images. These weren't memories of failed species. These were possibilities, futures that could happen in one future. Humans spread across the galaxy and became peaceful explorers, helping other species grow and learn in another future. Humans became like the dark ships, consumed by fear and anger. In a third future, humans worked with the Watchers and other good species to finally break the cycle of destruction. The choice isn't just about you, Nari said quietly. It's about what kind of future you want for your species and for the galaxy. Jiwan looked at his crew. They were all staring at the possible futures with wonder and fear. How long do we have to decide? He asked. As long as you need, Nari said. But remember, every day you delay, more species face the test, and most of them fail. The archive grew quiet, except for the soft sound of stars being born and dying in the distance. Jiwan closed his eyes and tried to think. But how do you make a choice that will affect the entire universe? Jiwan sat with his crew in the archive for what felt like days. They talked quietly about the choice they had to make. Sometimes they argued. Sometimes they just sat in silence, watching the memories of dead civilizations play around them. Keep thinking about my sister, Hannah said. She just had a baby. If I become a watcher, I'll never see that baby grow up. But if we don't help, Sora said, that baby might not have a future at all. We're not the only ones who can help, Minho said. There are other watchers, 3 other species that passed the test. 3 in 12 million years, Dong-Yuk reminded him. That's not very many. Jiwan listened to his crew talk. But they were good people, They deserved normal lives, not cosmic responsibility. But they also understood what was at stake. "What do you think, Captain?" Hannah asked. G1 looked at the sphere of light floating in the center of the archive. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. "I think," he said slowly, "that we're thinking about this wrong." "What do you mean?" Sora asked. "Nari gave us two choices: become watchers or go home. But we've never been good at accepting only two choices." His crew looked at him with interest. "You want to find a third option?" Minho said. "Don't we always?" Before anyone could answer, Nari appeared beside them. She must have been listening. What third option could there be? She asked. G1 stood up and faced her. "You've been testing species for 12 million years. You found 3 that passed. Not a very good success rate." "No," Nari agreed. "It's terrible. Maybe the problem isn't the species you're testing. Maybe the problem is the test itself." Nari raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "You test species when they're already spread across many worlds. When they're already powerful. By then, if they're going to fail, they've already started failing. The test just shows what they've already become." "That's true," Nari said. "But how else would we test them?" "You don't test them," Juan said. "You help them." The archive grew very quiet. Even the memories stopped playing. "Help them? How?" "Nari asks you find species early, when they're just starting to explore space. Before they have a chance to become violent or selfish, you guide them, teach them, show them the mistakes other species made." "We tried that once," Nari said sadly. "Long ago. We guided a species called the Builders. We taught them everything we knew. They became powerful very quickly. What happened? They decided they didn't need us anymore. They turned on us and tried to destroy all the Watchers. We barely stopped them." "Because you gave them power without wisdom," Sora said. "You taught them what to do, but not why to do it." "What would you do differently?" Nari asked. G1 thought for a moment. "We wouldn't teach them. We'd learn with them. I don't understand. Instead of Watchers standing apart from other species, we become part of them. We live among them, but we keep our memories and knowledge. We help them make good choices, not by giving orders, but by being examples." Nari was quiet for a long time. "That would mean giving up your transcendence, staying physical, living and dying like normal beings." "Yes," Juan said. "But it would also mean building real relationships. Trust, friendship. It would take much longer," Nari said. "Millions of years to change the galaxy instead of clearing it and starting over every few million years." "Good things take time," Hannah said. I walked to the sphere of light. She touched it gently, and images began playing around them again. But these weren't memories or possibilities. These were real events happening right now across the galaxy. G1 saw young species just beginning to reach for the stars. Some looked like humans. Others were completely alien. All of them were curious and hopeful. "There are so many," Dongyuk whispered. "Thousands," Nari said, "all at different stages of development, all facing the same choices your species faced." "If we went to them," G1 asked, "not as gods or teachers, but as friends, what if we shared our stories, showed them what we learned? You would give up transcendence for that?" Nari asked. "We would trade transcendence for purpose," Juan said. Nari was quiet again. Then she began to change. Her human form started to dissolve. Light poured out of her like water made of stars. She grew taller, brighter, more beautiful than anything Juan had ever seen. She became a being of pure energy and thought, older than worlds, carrying the weight of 12 million years. "You've passed my test, human," she said, and her voice was like music from the beginning of time. "Now witness my true form." The crew stared in wonder and fear. This was what Nari really was. This was what they could become. But then Nari did something unexpected. She began to shrink back down. The light pulled back into her. She became human-shaped again, but kept some of the light around her edges. "What are you doing?" Jiwan asked. "I'm choosing your path," Nari said. "For 12 million years, I've been trying to solve this problem by standing apart from it. You've shown me that maybe the solution is to become part of it. You're going to give up being a watcher? I'm going to become a different kind of watcher. One that lives among the species I'm trying to help." She touched the sphere of light again. This time, instead of showing them images, it began to hum with energy. "I'm sending a message to the other watchers," she said, "telling them about your idea. Some will think it's foolish, but some might be willing to try." "What about us?" Sora asked. "You go home," Nari said, "back to Earth. But you don't go empty-handed." She waved her hand, and suddenly each crew member was holding a small crystal that glowed with soft light. "These contain knowledge," she said. "Not about weapons or power, but about cooperation, growth, and understanding. Share it with your people. Help them become the species that breaks the cycle." "What about you?" Jiwan asked. "I'll visit Earth sometimes, not as a test giver, but as a friend. I'll help when I can, but the real work has to be done by humans. And the other young species across the galaxy. We'll visit them too, the watchers who agree to try your way. We'll live among them, learn from them, help them grow." Jiwan felt a warmth in his chest. This felt right in a way that becoming a cosmic god never had. "There's one more thing," Nari said. "The dark ships, the failed species. Some of them might be saved too. You showed them kindness when you talked to them. Maybe, with time and patience, we can help them remember who they used to be." The archive began to fade around them. They were back on Nara's ship, but it looked different now. More like a home than a test chamber. "Are you ready to go back?" Nari asked. "Yes," Jiwan said. "But we'll see you again." "You'll see me again?" Nari promised. "All of you. We have work to do." The ship shimmered, and suddenly they were back on. The handbok floating in space near Earth. It felt like they had been gone for weeks, but the ship's clock said only a few hours had passed. Captain Minho said, looking at his crystal. "What do we tell people?" Yuan looked out at Earth. Blue and beautiful and full of humans who had no idea how close they had come to cosmic judgment. "We tell them the truth," he said. "That the universe is big and dangerous and beautiful. That we're not alone. And that we have friends who believe in us." "Will they believe us?" Hannah asked. "Some will. That's enough to start." As the handbok flew toward Earth, Jiwan thought about the future. It wouldn't be easy. Changing an entire galaxy never was. But for the first time since the colonies were destroyed, he felt hope. Humanity had passed the test. But more than that, they had changed the test itself. And somewhere in the space between stars, ancient beings were learning to be human again. One friendship at a time. The cycle was breaking, and it started with a simple, human truth. Nobody has to face the darkness alone.